Hello, for those who do not know me, I'm Isabella Joanne Catazero Hayward, aka Bella. For as long as I can remember, Community Christian Church has been my biggest support and home away from home. Some of my earliest memories take place here. Granted, my dad played a large role in this, though I would not change it for the world. When describing my time at this church, I find it hard to summarize such a life-changing experience. Through this wonderful place and the influential people that attend here, I have made some of the best memories of my entire life, and I learned much more than my 18 years. As previously mentioned, I do not remember a time when this church wasn't a huge part of my life. Because my dad is the minister of music and has been the choir director here for over 25 years, I was born into this church. Attending countless church services, youth events, and Christmas musicals, there has always been such a sense of community and love here that I feel could not be replicated anywhere else. I believe that in this church I found my passion for music with the early Sunday morning children's choir rehearsals with Miss Debbie. These moments, whether I realize it or not, have all impacted me in one way or another and led me to become the person I am today. I specifically remember the first solo I sang in this church in 2009, standing with my pigtails along with the lovely Miss Debbie playing Jesus Loves Me as accompaniment. This was only the beginning of my journey with Christ. Ever since I was little, I knew without any doubt that God exists. Whether that was because of my upbringing or the fact that it was all I ever knew, I never questioned this deep connection that I felt when praying or attending church. I really started to understand this relationship with God in the 6th grade when I began pastor's class with Barb Herman as a wonderful mentor. Through this class, we studied, questioned, and discussed all different topics of faith. That Easter, I was baptized, and from that point on, my faith flourished. I had never really felt any tests of faith until the winter of my 8th grade year. On December 30th, 2015, I woke up to the worst day of my life. I had received a text message earlier that morning from my mother saying that she had taken my father to the hospital because he was struggling to breathe. At that moment, my heart sank and I did not know what to think. The previous night, December 29th, was no different than any other. My family had spent time doing normal winter break festivities and finished the night by watching Forrest Gump. Once the movie was over, I said goodnight and went to bed, not knowing of the life-changing events that were soon to occur. While I slept, my dad had the feeling of suffocation, which led him to go to the emergency room. My parents then found out about the formation of blood clots in his lungs and legs. He was admitted immediately. Soon enough, my older brothers who lived out of town brought their families. My mom was constantly at the hospital, and my grandparents had to drive me and my brothers, Cameron and Max, everywhere. New Year's Eve came and went for the first time without my dad. When I went to visit him in the hospital, he was emotional and looked very down. Seeing him lie there in that hospital bed, not knowing whether he was going to live or die, was honestly the hardest moment of my life. During these 2 weeks that my dad was in the hospital, I was left with a lot of time to think about my life and my faith. At that moment, I had never felt such a need to pray. I could not understand or even consider a life where my father wasn't present and had never felt more hopeless. Yet, by the grace of God, my father was saved. Up until that moment, I had never experienced a time when I questioned God's purposes. Sure, I had always attended Sunday school, sang worship songs, and volunteered, but I feel this is completely different than having a genuine relationship with God. Despite my endeavors, I was left curious as to why some of the people I loved most and who had close relationships with God were suffering. This moment truly shaped my relationship because I now feel, in a way, God was trying to reveal himself to me and show that I was not alone during this time. He not only saved my dad, but demonstrated the everlasting love and strength that seems to get lost in the chaos of today's world. Not only did I experience the goodness of God in this situation with my father, but I also see him when I think about the people at this church and in my life who have all shown not only what it means to have good character, but also to live Christ-like. Truthfully, I believe I could tell story after story of how each member of this congregation has impacted my life, no matter how big or small the instance was. The love I have for the people in this congregation is inexplicable, and no essay would ever be long enough to show the gratitude that I feel. Whether it was Mr. Fernandez testing me on my Spanish knowledge on an early Sunday morning, or hearing Rob Arbogast's beautiful singing voice during the hymns, all have led me to the moment of where I am now. The wonderful leadership here over the years, such as Brian, Luke, Mike, and Dana, are just some of the people who have shaped me. I specifically want to point out the goodness I see in Brittany Bennett, because from the bottom of my heart, there are no words I could write to capture what Brittany has done for me. She has one of the most genuine hearts, and I greatly feel she is like the older sister I never had. Next to my parents, Brittany has been one of the greatest role models and someone who I trust and aspire to be like. Although there are so many people who have touched my life, such as Chris Walsh, who has always had a warm smile for everyone, Miss Debbie, who truly brought my love for music to life through the children's program, and Miss Jen, who has one of the sweetest souls and has been there for me since birth, there is not enough time in the world to tell of these influences. I lastly want to thank Cecilia Aguirre, who has been my best friend for the last 13 years. We have been through so much together, and she has always stayed by my side despite my endless shenanigans, such as the usual late call Saturday night asking if she would sing with me the next morning. She is beyond talented, and I feel so honored to have watched her grow as a musician in the last few years. One of my favorite memories with Cecilia is when we were in the old children's music room with Miss Debbie, and were messing around per usual when she fell back on her chair, breaking it. I immediately knew we would be best friends from that point. I have nothing but love for this girl and cannot thank her enough for her support and friendship. My family, specifically my parents, have also influenced my life exponentially. My dad has been my greatest inspiration for both music and ministry throughout my life, and the reason I am so heavily involved in music. My mom, though I did not acquire her grace or her talent for dancing, has been my rock and the kindest person I know. My parents are the best people in my life, and I cannot put into words how thankful I am to have them as my mentors. Over my past 18 years, this church has become my family, and the relationships I have formed will last a lifetime. I believe God is calling me to serve in the bettering of people today. I plan to study psychology with minors in both music and Spanish at Capital University. Through these studies, I hope to go beyond 4 years of college and intend to either become a psychiatrist or music therapist. By becoming one of these careers, I hope to reach people and truly understand how the mind works. With that being said, through music, I will be able to help others cope with their situations, as well as potentially aid in one's growth as a person. This will allow me to serve people and continue sharing my passion for music with the world. I am forever grateful to Community Christian Church for providing me with the opportunities to serve and lead by giving me a second home, and also to Reverend Sarah Taylor Peck for her leadership and constant mentoring throughout my years. I hope to give back to this church in the future to ensure the continuation of both changing lives for the better and the spread of love and Christ throughout the community.